Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spectrum Sessions, the podcast where we platform unfiltered autistic voices and celebrate our differences. I'm Heather from the National Autistic Society Scotland, and today we're here with Tom Urie. Tom, it's so great to have you here today. Could you please introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Hi Heather, my name's Tom. I am an actor and a musician and a few other things, DJ and stuff. And I'm a late in life, although I'm still quite young, diagnosed autistic man.
To start things off, could you please tell us about one of your current special interests or hyperfixations?
Oh, at the moment, I'm hyper fixated on my vinyl record collection. So not only is it being lovingly played as usual, but it's now being categorized and alphabeticalized, and it's if I'm really thinking about it, what's a crazy thing I do about it? Yeah, the records have all got to have the label inside the sleeve. The labels, the records have got to have the labels in a straight line.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. My
Didn't
dad's
realize I
also.
didn't realize I did that until I thought about it there until you asked. But yes, all my records are just in case, you know.
Yeah, my dad's really into his records as well at the moment. He's sort of collecting them.
Yeah, it's like, it's like somebody who loves books would have a library and really loves the books, So I've got a memory with every album that I buy and that I've bought. I lost a lot of them when people stopped playing records around about the turn of the century, but I managed to get them all back from charity shops.
That's really cool. Do you have a favorite record that you've picked up recently that you'd like to talk about?
What have I got recently that I love? Gosh, actually, after years of moaning about it, I've become a little bit of a Swiftie.
Oh,
So
really?
I got the Tortured Poets album, and it's beautiful. I've been playing it constantly. So that, and also since the Super Bowl, I've bought Kendrick Lamar's album as well, which I'm now obsessed with.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, as you mentioned before, you were diagnosed only a few years ago. Could you tell us
Yeah.
a bit about your diagnosis journey and how it felt to finally get that diagnosis?
Yeah, I've probably got a different answer to that every time somebody asks me about it. The overwhelming kind of, if I had to use one word to describe my diagnosis, it would possibly be relief. As a start off point, relief, because finally there was an explanation for all the things in my life that had been odd, or I'd felt unusual about, or I had been frightened of. It didn't automatically sort everything into an alphabetical order, but it just explained some stuff that had been really puzzling me my entire life. And what I found, because obviously I got so proficient at masking because there was no choice when I was growing up in the 70s. It just wasn't it's a different world. So you had to just survive. You had to just try and blend in, which is exhausting as a kid and exhausting as an adult as well. But when you don't know why you're having difficulty having conversations or keeping up with the rest of the class's schoolwork, or um, people zoning out when you're talking to them, all that sort of becomes explained at a very base level when you get diagnosed. So I went, right, there's a starting point for me to now figure out that I'm actually as much of a proper human being as everybody else.
Mhm.
And I think that I had been in lockdown. Well, we'd all been in lockdown, and I think that I explored getting a diagnosis just after that, because nothing holds a mirror up to yourself better than being on your own for a year, and
Mhm.
having a perfect Animal Crossing island but a chaotic flat. So you know,
Oh,
I had spoken to a couple of friends who are autistic, and I'd asked their advice, and thankfully they didn't diagnose me, which I've got a habit of diagnosing people in my head. But they pointed me in the right direction, and I was able to go to Aspect Autism and for a few months just explore it, and and figure it out, and then eventually get an explanation as to why I'm an alien.
Mm. That's great. Yeah, relief was the exact same thing I felt as well, and the same with, like, loads of other autistic people who I've spoken to. And I think it is a lot about you have something to attribute everything to, and
Yeah,
before, you would blame yourself for all of those things being wrong with you because you don't have a reason for it,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
after it all gets taken away, you're like, "Oh, there is a reason for it," and then you don't have to sort of attribute it to you just being not as good as everyone else or not able to do these
absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a really big part, for a lot of us. And then secondly, Animal Crossing. You
Yeah,
couldn't
well,
not pick
listen,
up on that.
no, but yeah, okay. So, I was getting it was a when lockdown happened, we thought it was going to be 3 weeks,
Uh-huh.
and then a month, and then a couple of months, and then eventually, I was chatting to a friend of mine that lives in London, and said, "Why don't you get like a video game?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a console." And so they sent me a Nintendo Switch. They bought me a Nintendo Switch and sent me it. And the game they sent me was Animal Crossing because they obviously know my brain, I think. And I mean, I said, "Well, that's a game for 8-year-olds." And they said, "No, trust me." And it worked so well for me because it was about progressing through levels, collecting things, putting them in order, and it was a little bit of escapism. And I got really, really, really into it and played it for hours every day. I mean, I don't know how much of my life, if we'd to add it up, you could probably actually look on Nintendo online and see over 600 hours or whatever. But I'd played it a lot, almost completed it. I think I bought everything, every artwork, every fish, every museum piece. But it kept me grounded each day in a very bizarre, very simple way. And I moved on to other things. I mean, I didn't sit and play that the whole lockdown, but it moved me on to doing some music production and video production and everything. So it was a good way of grounding myself and reining in the madness.
That's great. I'm so surprised. I mean, like, I played Animal Crossing all through the lockdown as well. I've got
Yeah.
similar to you, like 500 hours on it or something, like crazy
Uh-huh.
amount of hours. There was
It
nothing
makes
else to do
sense,
at the
doesn't it?
time.
It makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense because you wake up and go, "What'll I do today? I'll go down and see Raymond." I managed to get Raymond. He's the kind of
Oh, you
most
did?
sought
Wow.
after. I got Raymond, yeah. And well, I'll go and visit another island today. And then I discovered that I could go and visit my pals' islands online.
Mhm.
So I had like somebody would come over and hang out on my. It sounds bonkers now, but it made perfect sense at the time. I couldn't sit for half an hour playing it now. I don't have the attention span. But at the time when uh, time stood still, it was a very different situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the person who created Animal Crossing originally, they were, they created it because they just moved to, like, a different, area, like a state away from their family and friends, and they were quite
Uh,
lonely, and they created
wow.
it as, like, a little sort of social simulation for themselves, and then
Yeah.
obviously it escalated from there, and that's what it is in
Yeah.
lockdown. It's like a little
Yeah.
sort of your own world with other little friends and stuff to spend time
Yeah.
with. It's lovely, yeah. But I'm
Yeah.
surprised because, like, you're around my dad's age, he would never be playing Animal Crossing. I feel like it's just a
I know.
generational thing, but
I know, but your dad probably isn't out buying Kendrick Lamar's latest album, and just I know. I know I've never grown up.
yeah. Well, me neither.
Well,
Um,
no, I was over. My great nephews phoned me. They're 4 and 7. They phoned me last week in a state because they were stuck at Super Mario Odyssey. So I had to go down and get in the car and drive across town to go over and get them past the level and then come back home again. But
oh, that's
that's
lovely.
my role. That's my role as an uncle. It's fine. I'm happy with that.
That's a great role, yeah. I'd be happy with that as
Yeah,
well. What was it like for you to grow up undiagnosed? Did you find it difficult to connect to your peers and find a sense of belonging?
yeah, yes, but not in an obvious way from an outsider. The funny thing about it is that when I did get diagnosed and I started to tell people, the people who immediately went, "Right, yes, of course you are," were all people who'd known me as a child.
Mm,
So my family all just went, "Yes, that makes absolute perfect sense." My friends who were at school with me said, "Absolutely, we always thought so." It's people that I've got to know as an adult that I've went, are you sure? Oh, everybody's autistic these days, you know, do you think and I'm like, you don't know the big giant suit of armour I had to put on every day I walked into the school playground
Hmm.
because I didn't know where to stand. I didn't know who to talk to, when I was to join in the conversation. And at the time, I wouldn't have been aware of this, but looking back as to the kind of wee boy I wasn't introverted or quiet or anything. I joined in, but it was very much only things that interested me. I wasn't ever interested in football or anything like that that went on in playgrounds. It was all, you know, reenacting Greece
Yeah.
somewhere with some other odd kids that are probably all diagnosed now as well. Um, and I think I found it. I did find it difficult as a child to deal with situations that, and I still have the same response as an adult, where I'm panicking and I'm going into a meltdown. And as a child, that wasn't allowed. You wasn't allowed to have a meltdown. So it was probably all internalized. Now I can quietly go off and have a meltdown because I can feel it coming like a thunderstorm dog, you know.
Hmm.
And as I think if I was a kid now, there would be questions as to why I was very good at English and reading, but completely disastrous when it came to maths and numbers. Um, Anything that didn't hold my interest as a child, I couldn't retain in my brain. I couldn't retain, and I still have difficulty with that now. I was hosting. I sat in for Kay Adams one morning on BBC Radio Scotland, um, and I was hosting that, and there was a couple of items that came on that I wandered off and kind of lost my train of thought.
Hmm.
And they spoke to me afterwards. How did you feel about that? And I went, I don't. I just wasn't interested. And they said, yeah, but you need to pretend you're interested. And I went, yeah, yeah, that's true. I need to. Yeah, gosh, in life I don't. But on
Hmm.
the radio, oh, I've got to pretend I'm interested in this corporate away day thing that they're talking about. So, yeah, as a child, I think I did find it difficult to blend in, but I learned very quickly to survive in that world. And that there you go. That's the masking. Started very, very young.
Yeah.
In order to
So I
survive, you just had to put on the same outfit.
I guess that the people who knew you when you were younger maybe knew you before you'd learned to mask, and then that's how they sort of were
Yeah,
more.
probably,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
that
think
would
there
make
was probably
sense.
a level of masking that um, was there from a very young age, just
Yeah.
in that kind of environmental, so somebody doesn't shout at you, you know. But
Mhm.
I, one of my oldest friends is a girl called Karen, who I've known since I was 3 years old. And when I told her about the diagnosis, she said, I could have saved you a fortune. I just told you. I could have told you 50 years ago. But
Yeah.
because they just remember, I mean, because I don't fit what society's stereotype, what society sees as a stereotypical autistic man, which for a lot of people that don't have experience with people with autism, it's Rain Man. So
Mhm.
it's somebody rocking back and forward and counting twigs, and it's not all like that. So somebody will say, I can't understand why you're saying you're autistic, because you can have a conversation and you can work and you can laugh and all this. And I said, that's because it's not what you think it is. It's not this uh, little caricature of what an autistic person is. So I
Mhm.
think people find it difficult to accept unless they've known and loved a person on the spectrum.
Yeah. To move on to your acting career, you've had a fascinating acting career, and you've appeared on TV shows such as River City, Still Game, and Chewing the Fat. And you've
Hmm.
also appeared in movies like Trainspotting 2, for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
When did you first become so interested in acting, and what is it about acting that you enjoy so much?
It's about playing a character. So it's
Mhm.
about being somebody other than yourself and also being in complete control of what happens. So if you've got a script, um, it's playing. It's playing being somebody else. So when I was in River City, it's filmed in Dumbarton, and it's a specialised set. It's beautiful, and it's like a little reproduction of an area of Glasgow that's built to scale, and it's in a studio complex, so it's a gated community. There's fences around it. There's security guards. There's a canteen. It's like a little ecosystem. It's a little The Truman Show, if you've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went there, I just completely left who I was outside the gates of this little world, and it became the character I was playing in there. It wasn't just the character in the show I was playing. I also kind of adopted another persona to be able to survive in that kind of environment. That's another aspect of masking, I guess. To be able to work on a day-to-day basis with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So acting-wise has always felt very natural for me, because you're pretending to be somebody you're not. So therefore, there's boundaries. Somebody's decided how this person reacts to things, how this person behaves around other people, and how this person speaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to worry about that. All I need to worry about is when they shout cut and how I react to everybody else. But I always say that because I'm a musician as well, so I'm never happier or feel more safe than when I'm on stage behind a piano with a microphone,
Mm-hmm.
because it just feels like my natural habitat. I don't know how to explain that, but it feels as if I'm in complete control of what's going on around me. And in an acting, and especially in like a theatre surrounding, the same thing happens every show, and it feels very, very safe. It feels really safe to be doing that kind of thing, and that's why I was really attracted to acting and to pretending to be somebody else. And in a way, that's what you're doing in Animal Crossing as well, isn't it? And there's boundaries.
Yeah.
There was an island. There was ocean around it. And the River City set was like popping into a different world and being somebody else for 12 hours a day. And it was right up my street. I really, really liked it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that conversations and stuff like group conversations, figuring out when you can start talking in a conversation between people, that's really hard for me and a lot of other autistic people. But if there's a script and you're like, you know when you're supposed to talk, you know when they're going to finish talking, like that sounds ideal. It makes sense
Totally.
why it would appeal so much to you.
Absolutely. It was the bits in between
Mhm.
that were the problem, because one of my other main things that's been a huge challenge for me, and still is that I try to join in with the banter. People are bantering back and forward, and I try and join in. I find it very difficult to understand when people are winding me up. When somebody's
Mm.
telling me something as a wind up, I'm always taken by surprise. No matter how often the person does it, I still go, really, what? And it becomes a problem. So when there's a banter going on amongst a group of actors or something, and I'll try to join in. There's a Tune the Fat sketch about it that I wasn't involved in, but it was guys, these car salesman guys are all going, aye, blah, blah, blah. And then one guy goes, aye, I did, blah, blah, and says something outrageous, and they'll go, you took that too far.
Mhm.
That's me. I'll come in and say something inappropriate. And either people will be angry or annoyed or laugh at me, and then 5 years later, I'm lying awake at 3 a.m. going, "Why did I say that?"
Yeah.
So that happens to me all the time, and sometimes I've maybe come across as being cruel or being derogatory to somebody when I was actually just trying to join in.
Yeah.
And as a kid, that happened as well. I would try to join in and get it wrong, and that's been something I've never actually managed to conquer. So a lot of the time, I'll just keep quiet, or I'll go
Mhm.
home, or I'll go and sit in my car.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, you learn not to join in because whenever you do join in, you're told,
Yeah,
it's not right, or you've taken things too far, or, you don't get the response you're looking for, and then you're like, "Well, I'll just be quiet then," and then, you
yeah,
start to be less included in the groups and
yeah.
stuff, which is
I
not
know
neat.
it's just obviously you figure out methods of kind of climbing back on the saddle and going, right,
Mhm.
oh, I'm sorry I said that, whatever. And then they probably forget all about it, but I certainly don't. I'm certain will
Yeah.
go, why did I say that? And, no matter how much time passes, you still go, why did I say that? So when the diagnosis came through, that didn't take that away, but it gave me an explanation for me anyway. I said that I didn't mean to say that mean thing because um, I'm autistic. And I thought it was okay to say that. But I'm not going to go way back and find that person and go through the conversation again that they've probably already forgotten and tell them that. I'll just have to sit at
Yeah.
peace with it and try to reason it with myself, which is really
Mm.
hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I'm always like, if I'm ever with my husband or something, we're having a conversation with a group or other people that I'm not so comfortable with, I'll always be
Mhm.
like, after the conversation, was I okay there? Did I say anything weird? Because I just like I
Oh,
can't tell. I need that reassurance. Do you ever
I
feel
do
like
that
you need
all the
some kind
I
of
do it
yeah?
all the time. I mean, I've got friends that do. They say, "No, you were fine." I said, "Was I out of order there? Did I cause that?" And they go, "No, you're absolutely fine." I go,
Mhm,
"Right. Was I a nightmare tonight?" "No, you were all right. You were fine." And I've got a
mhm,
couple of people that will tell me if I'm being a nightmare. They'll go, "It's time you went up the road," or whatever. Not quite that, but I've got friends that are aware, that know me really well and will go, "This is bullshit," or "This isn't bullshit. You're fine."
mhm. It's always good to have those people that you can check in with, that you feel safe and
Aye,
comfortable with.
aye,
And yet you were saying that obviously you're a musician as well. There's loads of music questions later in the interview, but
aye.
yeah, feeling more comfortable having an instrument in front of you and being
Yeah.
able to express yourself through the instrument rather than having to speak. I'm a musician as well. That's very, very similar to who I am. It's like you can feel so much more comfortable on stage playing a song that you've practiced a million times than having to talk in a small conversation with people. It's funny how
Yeah,
that works.
but also, music makes complete sense to me. So
Mhm,
the sound of music and the performance of music, it feels like I'm in complete tune with whatever cosmic force that is, right? As opposed to humanity and life in general. So music makes complete sense to me. Life doesn't. So music's constantly going on in my life. If it's not on physically, it's playing in my head. There's always a tune in my head. Um, and I feel completely relaxed when dealing with music or performing music or listening to it or talking about it even. In fact, I'm never happier than when I find somebody that's a music geek that I can sit and
mhm,
just for hours talk about gobbledygook with. But music to me feels like the person I'm meant to be and who I am. And it's hard to explain that to people sometimes. And that's why a lot of music irritates me too. Or there'll be a song that I'll just go, I'll have to, if I've got the radio on and a song comes on, I have to get out the bath to switch it off because it's
yeah.
wrong. It's just wrong. Um, and I don't know how to explain that to somebody. But
Mm.
the music that I like and the music that I perform and that I'm involved in is who I am. Basically, it's what I'm made up of. So I don't know what I'd do without it.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have a song in your head right now?
Yeah, there will be. What is it? It's "You Don't Know Me" by Ray Charles.
That's a cool party
And then
pick.
I know, but what I thought, because when I was getting diagnosed, I started really trying to analyze my behavior and my thoughts and everything, and I realized that there are certain parts in my house where the song changes when I walk into the room,
Mhm.
and the autism people had never had. I think I was the first person to present them with this concept.
Yeah.
Every time I walk into the kitchen in my house, Head Over Heels by Tears for Fears plays. I've got no idea why. And then there's if I go into my bedroom, Who's Zooming Who by Aretha Franklin plays, and then it medleys into How Will I Know by Whitney Houston. And no matter what I do, that's playing in my head. If you stop me and say, "What's playing in your head?" I go, "Oh, it's when I'm in the bedroom, it's Who's Zooming Who." And it's a terrible song, I don't even like it. But there must have been something that happened in each part of my house that there's a song connected to.
That's so funny. It's almost
I know,
like
but
a video game where each area has a different,
yes,
backtrack.
different levels. I know, but
Yeah.
I've not encountered anybody else that has this. Maybe anybody watching, if you got this crazy thing going on too, please let me know.
No, I mean, I don't have that, but, I do sort of, like, start humming and singing whenever, there's too much, like, stimulation going on, like auditory noise. So, like, I think it's to
Yeah.
regulate, like, the sound in my head, so I'll just
Is
start
it like a
singing.
almost like a stimming thing?
Yeah, but it's all the time, and, it's just whenever there's, like, too much noise going on, if Stephen's in the kitchen, my husband making something, and it's
Mm.
too loud, I'll just start singing. Um, and I used to in school, like, in primary school, I would sit and hum a song, constantly in the classroom, and then I would get in trouble, and they'd be like, "Who's singing?" And then I wouldn't raise my hand because I wouldn't realize I was doing it. It's just like a
Uh-huh.
unconscious thing I'm doing all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
How do you feel that being autistic affects your acting?
In a practical day-to-day situation, um, since my diagnosis, I've only really had one or two acting jobs, um, for various reasons. It's feast or famine with acting, but I did a play last year. It was a three-hander play that was written by Johnny McKnight and the director Jemima. It was quite an intense hour-long play, and I was playing a kind of bad guy character that got really angry and shouty and upset. And when they cast me in the part, it's the first time I've ever done this. I said to the director and the cast at the beginning, I said, I'm an autistic man, and there may come times in rehearsals when I might do something slightly odd, and I'd just ask for your patience. What I'll try to do is signal it by saying, I need 2 minutes. So what I said to the director was, if I'm getting overwhelmed, I'll say, I need 2 minutes, and then I'll just nip outside and come back in when I'm ready. Is that okay? And they were like, absolutely. There was no question. It was never brought up again. Um, they were just completely, fully supportive of the fact that that was the thing that I needed to just put out there before we started. And I only did it about twice during a 3 week rehearsal period where I just was like, I can feel it starting. I'm beginning to lose it. Can I get 2 minutes? Yeah, off you go. We'll all have a coffee break, and they made it so that it wasn't a big deal. That was a beautiful experience for me doing that play. It's called Meet Me at the Knob. It was about it was an old Glasgow gang, and it made me realise that as an autistic man, I can actually um, set boundaries for myself and others by just explaining. I don't need to go into huge detail about my diagnosis or my autism. All I have to do is say, I've got a couple of odd things that might seem quite weird. Here's what might happen. And if anything else bizarre happens, give me a chance to explain after 10 minutes. And everybody was just like, go for it. Perfect. There's been jobs in the past where I've not been aware and I've just reacted and either got upset or ran out or whatever, and everybody just thinks, "Why is he being a drama queen? Um, what what's on? What's wrong with Tom? Why is he sitting out in his car? We've got something to do." And I didn't know either. I would go, "Why?
Mhm.
Why did I react like that? Why have I lost it? Why am I crying about coffee? What's
Yeah.
going on?" And so this was my first experience of having an acting job where I knew sort of the lay of the land before we started, and it felt I was very protective of myself, but in turn, the rest of the cast and the production people and the director were very protective of me as a person as well, and it was lovely, and it let me know that I can do it now. So
Mhm.
any situation I go into in a work or an acting environment, it's very clear from the outset that I'm going to be okay, and that if anything
Mhm.
happens, it's still okay, and that feels really, really nice. And I sort of wish I'd been diagnosed as a kid so that I could have explained this and all the kind of situations I've been in all my life, but can't go back and change things.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what we all wish, isn't it? To be diagnosed younger and then you understand yourself sooner. But
Yeah,
it's great that you had such a good experience and those little adjustments make such a big difference. This is what I always
yeah.
tell people. You just have to make small changes to make an
It's just
autistic
tiny,
person's
tiny
life so
little
much
changes.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it doesn't take too
it's
much effort either.
not a big deal. It's like I DJ quite a lot as well, and there's just a couple of things that I need to not happen. I just need to be. I need there to be a wall behind me because I can't have somebody coming up and tap me on the shoulder all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I need to see what's happening, who's coming. And the places I work are all great about that as well. They go, they'll laugh and banter with me about it, but everybody works around it, and it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal to just go, can I move that? Can I move that door around here? That makes me feel safe. Okay, look, yeah, that's fine.
That's great. It's great that you've been able to ask for those adjustments for yourself as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, how do you feel the environment of a film or TV set? At least, I guess it's been better more recently, but maybe more difficult in the past because I imagine it can't be very sensory friendly with all the lights and the cameras and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unreal situation, but it's not so much about lights and cameras and all that kind of thing, because that makes sense. It's
Mm,
technical, it makes sense. It's about interactions with other people.
yeah.
So if you look at a TV show like River City, you'll see 3 people on screen, but there's 100 people working on
Mhm,
the set. So, and there's people telling you what to do, and there's people's, you need to be at a certain place. And sometimes I could snap or bark at somebody, or I would get frustrated at myself and it would come out wrong, and I would try and do a joke and it would come out wrong. And navigating your way through that undiagnosed I found it hard. In retrospect, I found it hard. At the time, I just thought I didn't know why I was behaving that way. And it wasn't all the time. It was just occasionally I would say a joke and people would get upset. And I go, what did I
mhm,
do? Or I would say, I need to go and sit in the car. Why is he sitting in his car? Has he been a diva? And I just needed to sit in the car so I could breathe again, because there's bits happening, coming at you the whole time. There's remembering a line, somebody else comes in, it's really, if you're having a bad day as an autistic person, it's difficult to deal with. If you're all right, it's okay to deal with because it makes sense. But it's just the social aspect of it. And 99.9% of the time, it was joyous and a great laugh, and it was hanging about with a big gang of pals. But occasionally, I would just, my cat's meowing. What is it? Busy? Occasionally, it would be very, very difficult. And it was difficult towards the end as well, when I was getting written out, because there was huge uncertainty about, what's going to happen and why have they written me out, and essentially they were writing me out because the story had just come to an end, and
mhm.
it happens to everybody. But of course, I was going, what have I done? What have I said?
Yeah. Did you find that it was quite exhausting, like, after you came home after a big day at work with all that socializing and masking and stuff? Did you find yourself, like, sort of quite tired when you came home?
Oh yeah, but I'm always tired anyway. It was a good tired though. It did feel like, I mean, I like being busy. I like working. Um, it would be exhausting if there was something going on that I wasn't dealing well with. If there was another person I wasn't getting on with, or I was having trouble with, I would be exhausted with that, and I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I'd have things going over in my head. It was actually like the playground again.
Mhm.
It was like trying to be that kid and say, where do I stand? What do I do? Is it okay if I go and sit down? And all the things that other people would just automatically do. It's almost as if I'm writing the script of how I'm going to behave in my head before I do it.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I didn't do that. But in order to survive in society, I think you basically have to try and blend in, and it is exhausting. It's so exhausting, but
Mhm.
you get good at it. You
Yeah.
get okay at it.
Yeah,
The costume
absolutely.
gets better. Yeah.
I was only asking because there's a lot of autistic people who come home after socializing all day and just completely crash because 'cause they'll be so
Oh yeah.
exhausted
No, I
from
mean,
it.
but seriously, if I'm DJing at the weekend now or something, and I've been DJing on Friday, Saturday, and then maybe singing on Sunday, possibility of me getting up out of my bed on a Monday is quite rare. I will
Mhm.
happily just, because I am exhausted with it, because it's like, hooray, hey, yes, everything's fine. Um, yeah, you're right. You are right. I'm tired with it, but it's not something that scares me or worries me. It's just something
Mhm.
that I guess I was born with, and that I accept. That I
Yeah.
get tired at different times other people do.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, 2 in the morning, I can talk to you about ABBA B-sides for 3.5 hours without getting tired, but try and get me to have a cup of tea with somebody, and when I'm on a chaise lounge with my hand in a bowl of rose-scented water, needing the smelling salts.
Yeah.
And don't
definitely.
invite me to your wedding. Oh my God, weddings are the worst for me. Can't
Oh
cope
no.
with it. I cannot cope with weddings. Small talk, I don't know how to do it. I don't know
Yeah.
how to do small talk. Don't know how to do it.
No.
And at weddings, it's all small talk. So what have you been up
Mm.
to? Have you got some work? And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to
Yeah.
ask you about you. I don't know. Should I ask you back? That's
Yeah.
the hard thing. That's the thing I find hard to explain to somebody that isn't autistic. Is that everything has to be a decision. So if somebody asks me how I am, I go, do I say, how are you back? And another thing is people hugging you. So if somebody's hugged me when they've met me, I remember I go, all right, they hug. So if I see them again, I'll give them a hug.
Hmm.
And they go, what are you doing hugging me? And I go, well, you hugged me last time. What, do we shake hands? What's the rule? What's the rule for
Hmm.
it? So it's now got to the stage where I'm now going, I don't really like hugging anybody because I don't know what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
It's weird.
No, I hate all that stuff that's just expected you to figure it out yourself, and it doesn't make any sense.
So hard.
But
It's so
yeah,
hard.
weddings. Ugh, I'm not a fan of weddings
Oh,
either, or the small talk of them. We got married last year, and I only had 6 of us there, including me and my husband. So there's only 4 guests. But it worked out great for us.
perfect.
No small talk, nothing. So it was good. Um,
Well, my nephews both got married within the past few years, and my first nephew, Jack, actually got a hotel room for me upstairs and went, this gets too much for you, go up there, there's a coffee machine, and just sit there and come back down. So they already knew. And then my other nephew last year gave me a job as video in the wedding so that I didn't have to
mm.
actually, so I had an excuse to say I'm too busy.
Oh, that's
So
lovely. Yeah.
my family have been amazing. They just, it's as if I'd told them that I'd cut my finger. They went, all right, nothing changed. Occasional joke and whatever, but because I think they knew as a kid. One of the things that really kind of got me was I'm very close to my aunt Nan, who was my mum's sister,
Hmm.
and she still is my mum's sister. My mum's passed away, but my aunt Nan, I went over and told her, and she's in her 80s, and she's one of these older women that's a riot. You know, she loves dancing and
Yeah.
singing, and I went up to see her, and I was having a cup of tea, and I said, "Listen, Aunt Nan, I've been diagnosed as autistic." And I didn't know how she was going to react to it because she's from that generation. And she just looked at me and she went, I wish your mum and dad were still here so I could tell them that that's what it was.
Oh.
And I went, so they knew something? And she went,
Hmm.
God, I wish they were. So I
Yeah.
could have explained it, because there's no explanation why it wasn't a huge problem. Me
Hmm.
as a kid, I was just different. And so she said that to me, and I said, it's nice to know that they knew that there were challenges for me and that I wasn't a freak.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Do you feel that the acting industry is becoming more inclusive to neurodivergent people?
Yes, I think it's possibly a bit ahead of the
Mhm.
rest of society. I think it's incredible the way that the world's changed in the past 20 years with all this, and that there's now protections and there's now understandings about it, and it's now seen. One of my one of the things I absolutely hate is when somebody tries to put a positive spin on it for me. There's a superpower you've got, and I'm like, oh. There's a song coming out about neurodiversity by the Lottery winners called Superpower, and it's kind of like that, it's a
Yeah.
superpower that I wish I didn't have. I wish I could just. But it's not that I don't. I wish I didn't have it, but people try to have an explanation for something that can't be explained, which is me.
Yeah.
But I think that the acting industry, there are now the way my experience with the Play a Pint in a Pint theatre company that I did work with was that it was completely accepted that I had this thing going on. And I think that it's probably now in a kind of workplace remit that allowances have to be made, or we have rights maybe
Yeah.
to behave like that. And it's probably, if there's probably an HR system in workplaces now that respond to this. And I think that the television industry tends to have quite groovy people working in it. So I think they're
Mhm.
probably a bit more open to neurodiverse. And also, actors and musicians, an awful lot of them are neurodiverse.
Yep.
Because that's the same reason I talk about it. Is I think, there you go into. I've got a couple of mates that are actors that one especially who plays a neurodiverse autistic character on TV. She's been a great help to me, and it showed me because she owns it now, and is in charge and very vocal about being autistic, that it's given me license to do it too. And I think that that's to be visible and to be visibly an autistic person working in the arts, and not to be walking around in a circle counting matches, is a
Mhm.
great example. And I'm glad
Yeah.
that there was examples before me, like Chris Packham was a big influence
Mhm.
on me as well. And then there was a documentary where Ken Bruce was on with his son as well. And that documentary showed a vast spectrum of people with different types of autism. And it
Yeah.
was really handy for me to phone somebody and say, watch this, because that explains my thing. But the other one
Mhm.
doesn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think it's better now. It's getting better. And I think it will be great. I think for the generation of kids that are growing up now, it possibly won't even really be that big a deal,
Yeah.
because society will have molded it. And as you said, it's just slight changes we need, just slight
Mhm.
changes.
Yeah, and there's lots more autistic representation coming up on TV now and movies, which has
Aye.
been great to see.
Yeah.
Like Ashley Story's Dinosaur, for example. That
Well,
was
that's what I'm talking
really
about.
cool. Is it?
Yeah. Ashley's a good friend of mine, yeah. So um, Ashley's a fantastic example of just, look at what she's doing. It's incredible.
Mm.
And Dinosaur's dynamite.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely
great.
brilliant.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it's great being able to, the relief of being able to laugh about it as well. Because a lot of autistic people are really funny.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like you develop the chat to as part of masking as well.
Mhm.
But no, a dinosaur I think was really important, and I'm glad they're
Yeah.
making more.
Yeah, me too. So this might be a bit of a tough question, but what has been your favorite acting job so far and why?
Favorite acting job? Yeah, there's one. Right, yeah, there's one that sticks in mind. The National Theatre of Scotland started 20 years ago,
Mhm.
and they started with two big productions. The first production, the two of them, one was a Black Watch, and the other one was Tutti Frutti. And Tutti Frutti had been a TV series in the 80s written by John Byrne, and starring Robbie Coltrane and Emma Thompson and Richard Wilson and all these people. And it was massive at the time. And the National Theatre of Scotland had announced that that was going to be their first big show. So it was going to be playing in the big theatres, the King's Theatre and the Aberdeen, His Majesty's, and it was going to tour. And it was like a year job, and everybody was up for the parts. And I hadn't known about it, but Robbie Coltrane had been a real hero of mine, especially being a bigger guy. And I found out about it, and I had to actually. This is probably where the autism came in handy. They
Mhm.
wouldn't see me for an audition for it because I
Mhm.
don't think I had the right pedigree. I hadn't really done much acting. I'd only done bits and bobs on TV and stuff. And I think they just thought I was a pest, because I phoned their office saying, please, can I get an audition? Because it was for the lead role, it was an important
Yeah.
part. And they were like, listen, it's not really, we've got somebody in mind already. But I didn't give up, and I just kept phoning and kept phoning and kept phoning until it became a bit of a joke. And then
Yeah.
eventually, I mean, they've talked about this. Eventually, after weeks of this, of me phoning almost every day, because I was just desperate for this part, I just felt born to play it. Because it was a big guy that sang, played piano and guitar.
Mhm.
This there's never going to be another part like this.
Yeah.
The only other person that could play this part is Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah.
So eventually they said, look, if you come up on Friday at 5:30, the director will be in and he'll have a cup of tea with you. And just, if it gets you to shut up, come up and see us. And I
Yeah.
did. I went up and I went in, had the meeting, got the audition and got the part. And
Wow.
it was a joy from start to finish because I was in a cast with incredible people that I thought were amazing actors. They were all a little bit nuts, including me. So there was things happening every day. It was a 9-week rehearsal period in Aberdeen. John Byrne, who's one of my literary heroes, was in the rehearsal room for the whole 9 weeks.
Wow.
I got very good friends with him. He was just an absolute gem of a man with a real aura about him. And it just was a big, gigantic adventure. And we ended in Blackpool at the end of the year. And so it was like a carry-on movie, but then we all knew each other so well. And there was some older actors in it. And I think I was in my early 30s at the time, so I was a little bit fresh-faced. And the one thing that I do look back on, remembering it now, was that I had nowhere to go when the curtain went down at the end of the night because they all went to the pub, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I got sober in 2001, and I don't tend to go to the pub. Also, I was too hyped at the end of the show to just go home.
Yeah.
So I used to go and just find. It was in Aberdeen. It was Aberdeen Beach, and I would sit there for an hour and just breathe. And then anywhere else I would go and find somewhere quiet to sit, and I coped through that. And people kind of were going, "Why is he not coming to the pub?" And I would just say, "Well, it's because I'm an ex-alky, do you know what I mean?" But it was really because the sensory overload, because it was a huge show with loads of stuff going on and big personalities, all these actors that were dynamite, and sometimes difficult and hilarious and loving and all these things that I could exist in, but I had to create my own space immediately after it finished.
Yeah.
And that's my favourite job. That's the huge, big, long autistic answer to that's what my favourite acting job was.
That's amazing.
But River City was great as well. Everything's been great. Every job I've done has been great in its own way.
Yeah, it sounds like your tenacity from being autistic really helped you to get the job as well, which is so cool.
Aye, so there you go. It paid off. Short
Yes.
of going and kicking their door in,
Yeah.
it paid off, and people did start to think. My pals were going, "Just leave it." I'm going, "No, I'm not leaving it because I can't not say that I've tried my hardest."
Yeah, sounds like you were like fixated on it and you're like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
get this
God, it
role no
was
matter what, you know what I
there
mean?
you go.
Yeah.
Hyper focus. There it is.
Yes. To move on to music, as well as being an actor, you're an incredible musician. How did your journey with music start?
It started in a very a very autistic way. I went to nursery school, and I remember I've got very vivid memories of my childhood, early childhood, and I remember my first day of nursery school, and I remember the room, I remember who was there, I remember the smells, I remember the sounds, and my mum had taken me down, and I was worried about going. And she took me in, and a teacher met me and took me in and sat me at a table with some Lego and went, "Why don't you sit and play some Lego?" And I wasn't interested in Lego. I
Mhm.
don't know why, because I love it now. But so I sat there, and there was kids running about playing. I don't think there was anything structurally going on that day. It was just kids playing with things, climbing frames, and all this kind of stuff. There was garages and cars and stuff, and I just sat there going, What have I to do?"
Mhm.
And I thought, "I have to sit here." So I didn't join in with anybody. I didn't speak to anybody. I just sat at the Lego table and watched. And I don't think they noticed. I don't think the teachers noticed. But I remember when my mum came back to pick me up, she said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Oh, I sat at the Lego table." "Did you not play?" And I went, "No." And she said, "Well, you go back tomorrow." And I said, "No, I'm not going back. I'm not going back." And she said, "Oh, come on, give it another try." And I was getting upset. "No, I don't want to go back. I just sit there." I just sat there and nobody spoke to me.
Mhm.
And she said, "Look, let's go, and how about we go to the toy shop and have a look?" and get you something for being brave and everything. We went down and there was a toy guitar in the window. She bought me the toy guitar and the promise
Oh.
that I would go back for one more day to nursery. And then a few days later, it might have been a few days, the nursery phoned my mum and said, "Can you come when you come down to pick him up? Sneak in and see what he's doing." So my mum and dad both came down, and I had sat at a xylophone,
Mhm.
and there was a teacher. I was sitting at a piano. There was a teacher playing the entertainer, and I had
Mhm.
sat down at a xylophone and joined in. And they were going, "How does he know how to play that?" And I just joined in, and I was playing the tune.
Yeah.
And so they phoned my mum and dad and said, "Don't let him know that you can see him," because I would probably went, "Oh, there's my mum and dad." So they can. So they eventually they went. They said, "Right, well, that's his thing. He's musical." So they got me to violin classes, which it became torture. But
Mhm.
that was my first kind of foray into, oh, he's musical. And then I became obsessed with records, which has stayed with me my
Mhm.
whole life. There was a single called "Long Haired Lover from Liverpool" by Jimmy Osmond. And
Mhm.
I apparently played that morning, noon, and night in the house on an old record player, leaning on the record player on repeat, just listening to it the whole time. And then back then there was electricity meters that you had to put a shilling in. And if
Mhm.
if the electricity meter ran out and somebody had to go and get a shilling from somewhere, I would turn the record with my hand and listen carefully to still be able to hear it. And everybody just thought this was hysterical. But looking back, I'm like, that, right, yeah, hyper
Yeah,
focused.
that's a great story.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's exactly who I was from a very, very early age. Was just, this is the guy that likes music.
yeah. Do you find that music helped you to communicate your feelings and thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Because um, I do a gig every Sunday at the moment in the Oak Tree Inn in Balmaha at
Mhm.
Loch Lomond, and I absolutely love it. It's just me with my piano and a microphone, and I take requests. So
Yeah.
people shout out songs, and my weird brain, 9 out of 10, knows them and sing it, and I can really get into it, and it feels authentic and it feels good. And I would be more relaxed driving out there and doing that than I would be lying in my bed on a Sunday. It's so
Mhm.
strange. It feels like getting into a comfortable pool
Yeah.
and being in the right environment. And I can be emotional with it, and and I'm really able to connect with people. I get to know everybody that's in the bar and the restaurant. And if it's somebody's birthday, or if it's somebody, what was your favourite song when you were growing up? What was your wedding song? And we do all that, and it becomes a big gang almost, that I feel part of. And I feel part of it because I'm doing a cool thing that I know that I'm all right at. And
Mhm.
people are responding or not responding, but I'm in charge of it, and I'm not going to clamber about or bang into something. It's just controlled and it's there, and it's where I feel happy. And I'm able to get emotional singing a song because I feel safe,
Mhm.
rather than putting it on or trying to, so I will be singing something that will remind me of an old pal, and I'll start filling up.
Mhm.
Um, and so I find it easy to connect music to emotions and feelings in a way that I find it difficult in any
Mhm.
other way.
That's amazing that you're able to do that. I've watched some of your YouTube videos with you singing Nessun Dorma and
Oh
during
my
COVID
God.
making all of the videos. I mean, you're an
Oh,
incredible
Bohemian
singer and
Rhapsody. Have you seen that?
yeah, I've seen that. It's
That's a diagnosis in its own, isn't it? That was
it's so
done.
cool though.
Yeah, but what I did was I was going mad. It was probably, when was lockdown? March. So by about early summer, I had go, I need to do something. I need to do something. So I had done a couple of videos for charity gigs. There was a lot of charity gigs online
Yeah.
during COVID. And I had done one where I'd multi-tracked a song, and I went, oh, that was great fun. Why don't I do another one? So then it got to the thing where I went, right, well, I need to do one every day now because that's what I'm enjoying and it's making me feel fulfilled. So what I'll do is I'll start at 10 in the morning. I'll spend the day recording the song, and then I'll spend the last 2 hours making a video for it. And I got one of my pals sent me a green screen because they said your house is too messy in the background. They sent me a green screen, so I was able to put up fantasy backgrounds and everything. And Bohemian Rhapsody, I started at 10 in the morning, and by 7 o'clock at night it was finished. So that was all done in the one day. And I watch it now and I go, I think that would take me 6 weeks now.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
did one every day. I did Mr. Blue Sky, and I did, and I was multi-layering vocals and playing all the instruments, and it just was a complete joy, and I was in complete control of it. And it was also a way of still communicating with people, because folk go, "What's Tom up to?" "Oh, here's his new song."
Yeah.
So there'll be a new song on every night. And then, of course, I got COVID and stopped. And then
Mm.
it's difficult to get started once again. But there's probably about 60 videos online of me doing some sort of. I've watched some of them now and I don't even remember doing it. Oh my God, what was going on?
Yeah, no, I watched quite a few of them, and they're so good.
Oh, thanks, Heather.
Really, really impressive. I really enjoyed them. And it
Thank
sounds
you.
like you were just totally hyper fixated on just getting them through, and
Hyper
it was bringing
focus,
you so
yeah.
much joy as well. And that's the best thing about being a creative autistic person. You can just find something that and then that's all you want to do. You forget to eat or drink, and you'll
Yeah,
just be like entirely consumed by it.
yeah,
But like you're happy about it. It's the greatest feeling in the world. You
yeah.
know.
Well, at the moment, it's my records, because I'm going through a phase of loving my vinyl records, and that's my thing just now.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm hyper focused on. As soon as we've finished speaking, I'm going over to make sure they're all lined up properly.
Cool. Do you prefer to play music on your own or with others? Because I was kind of getting the vibe that you prefer playing on your own, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. There are some people who I play music with who, if I'm vibing with, and then I love that. I've got my mate Sevi. I'm happy playing music with him. Um, People that get me, I like playing with, but no, most of the time I like being in charge. And that can be
Nice.
quite difficult if I'm working with other people sometimes, because I get very kind of, no, it's this way.
Mm,
But yeah, I've been in bands and stuff, but I prefer doing everything myself.
yeah. See,
Is the that?
I thought about this question. I wonder if it's like an autistic thing because I grew up in bands as well and stuff like this and accordion show bands and the like. And then I always preferred playing on my own. And I think it is like a control thing. It's and it's also music is so much about communicating with the other people who are playing with you. And I feel like
Yeah,
that's harder for us as well. So yeah, I just always preferred being in total control and not having to think about what everyone else is doing.
yeah. I like playing with other musicians if I'm just in the background doing a thing, so I can happily go and be a keyboard player in the background while somebody else is doing the singing and
Yeah.
jumping about and all that. But if I'm at the front and there's other people behind me doing stuff, I'm less comfortable. So I
Mhm.
think if I know my place and I'm just sitting, maybe do a wee tour with somebody for 2 weeks playing the piano, I'm happy as Larry. Um, but if it's my thing, I like to be in charge of it.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about the challenges that you face in your day-to-day life due to being autistic?
I've said this before. The hardest thing, and I don't know if other people share this, my biggest challenge is feeling that I have to explain to people that I'm autistic, and having
Mm,
to explain to them what autism is, and having to explain how it affects me. And I, I don't really have to do that, and I shouldn't have to do it. But there are situations I'm in where I try to deal with something. Somebody will come up and try and give me a big hug, and I'll go, I don't really like hugging people because I don't.
yeah.
And they go, don't be silly, come on. And then eventually, if they're just too at me, I'll have to say, listen, I'm autistic, and this makes me uncomfortable, and I'm really sorry.
Mhm.
And they go, oh, most of the time they'll go, oh, okay. But sometimes they're going, oh, but it's all right, I don't mind you, autistic. And you go, oh,
Oh,
God, you're not getting
jeez.
it.
No.
So just boundaries with people and boundaries with myself, and trying to explain, because one of the things when I got the diagnosis, and part of the kind of working with aspect autism, was they were saying, you don't need to mask now. You don't need to creep about being, you just be proud of who you are. So sometimes I get a little bit gung ho about I'm going to not explain myself today, and I'm just going to go through today and exist who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard to do when you're trying to integrate with a society, I suppose.
Yeah.
And my hard thing is when I'm confronted with something. Like a perfect example, right,
Yeah.
is I was getting petrol in a petrol station in Stirling, and I was getting a bottle of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to keep the petrol receipt separate from the other thing, right? And I said to the woman, "Can I pay for my petrol first and then pay for my bottle of water? Because it's two different things." And she went, "Why don't I just charge you all at once and then I'll print you out two separate receipts?" And I went,
Mm-hmm.
"What?" She went, "You just pay for it all at once and I'll print you out two separate receipts." And I went, "Can I not just pay that first and then do that?" "No, it's easier to do it." And then I started getting really shaky. She was
Yeah.
going, "Are you okay?" And I went, "I just wasn't expecting a decision and I don't know what to do. Can I
Yeah.
just please pay for the petrol and then pay for the thing?" And she went, aye, okay." And then the next time I was in, I had to say to the woman, I said, "Well, I'm really sorry about that." And I had to say, I'm autistic, and sometimes something will take me by surprise, and a giant deal gets made out of something that
Yeah.
is really, really quite a simple thing to deal with. And then for the rest of that night, I was going, why did I behave like that with that woman in the petrol station?
Mm-hmm.
Why was I shaking? Why? It's just a receipt. It's just a bottle of
Mm-hmm.
water. So the chance of that happening every day is one of the challenges that I have about day-to-day life. This sounds like a weird thing to say, and I don't know if I mean it, but a lot of the time I wish I wasn't autistic, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the time I'm quite grateful.
Yeah.
And the default setting tends to be I wish I wasn't. So that's
Mm.
why I try and compensate all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of people are quite conflicted, you know, sometimes if they have a terrible experience, if they have a meltdown in public or something like that, of course you'll be thinking, you know, I wish this wasn't me, but other times, you know, you can see that it's hard to detach the good things about yourself from being
Aye.
autistic and stuff as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about being autistic?
Music and my relationship to music. I think it's. I think if I wasn't autistic, it would mean something different to me. Music,
Mhm.
but I think being able to tie my music and autism in the same place in my head makes complete sense to me. And music's always a sanctuary for me. So no matter what's going on, I love having AirPods because you've always got them in your pocket.
Yeah.
I can escape with music. And I think that my approach to listening to music and performing music would be different if I wasn't autistic. And um, for that, I'm incredibly grateful that I'm autistic.
Yeah. That's lovely. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
Oh, calm down. Calm down. It's fine. It's all right. Just calm down. Don't smoke ever.
Yeah.
Just calm down. It's okay. You're not a freak. You're not an alien. You're different, but you'll find other different people, and then all the people that aren't different will realize that your difference is all right and it can be celebrated, and life gets better. Life will get better for this specific thing that you're having to deal with, this integration into groups of people chatting. That'll become easier. It's still not easy, but I think in another 10 years, it will be absolutely accepted that not everybody behaves and speaks in the same way in a social situation. And I think it will become much easier for somebody who's socially awkward to say, "I'm off. I'm away
Mhm.
early," without having to make an excuse. Say, this is my trap door here. Um, yeah,
That's very
lost my
good
train of thought
advice.
there. Yeah,
No, it makes
good
a lot of
advice.
sense.
Calm down. Calm Down is my advice to my younger self. It's all right. You're fine. You're all right. You're not thick. You are not thick. Failed all my exams. You're not thick. You're just not in the right place. You're not getting the right help.
Yeah. That's
You
really
know,
valuable.
the exam results came out and I'd failed almost everything. The only thing I'd passed was English and music. And my brother and sister had been academic successes. And then when I came along and I couldn't deal with it, I thought I was the world's thickest person. Teachers all did. My parents were just puzzled. Luckily, they really backed me in my music thing, which was the thing that was working. So I ended up going to music college and all that kind of stuff. So it was fine. But I'd love to go to myself at school and go, you're not stupid. You're not stupid. You're not thick. Stop beating yourself up because you can do this, you can do that they can't do. And there's a reason why you're not able to concentrate. And there's a reason why you're not able to figure maths out. And it's not because you're stupid or thick. Calm down.
That's great. Do you have any advice for other people who are late diagnosed and trying to find their place in the world?
Yeah, possibly you don't actually have to if you don't want to. So if you don't want to go through a diagnosis, you don't have to. You know you. Self-diagnosis is a big thing these days. It's not the path I went down, but I'm completely accepting of it. I think it's as valid as anything else. It's like realizing that you're left-handed. You know, if somebody, I think you can look at an autism diagnosis as, oh my God, I'm going to have to go and be on a waiting list or pay this money or sit there and people are going to ask me questions I don't want to answer. When I think as society develops, it will become that you don't have to. You don't have to. I felt I had to because I felt as if I needed a bit of paper with a diagnosis that I could explain to people and explain to myself really and just go, yes, that's it. There it is. That's it. That might not be as important to other people. So late in life, yes, if you want to do it, go and get diagnosed. I'm glad I did it. That's what I would say. I'm glad I went and got diagnosed because I found out more information about what autism is and who I am and the life that I've had. So, yeah, go and do it. But if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. And you can still be, I am an autistic man. You can still, it's fine.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially with the long waiting times for diagnosis
Oh my
nowadays.
God, yeah.
Self-diagnosis is so important.
Yeah. And speak to other people that have been through it. That's what I was like with Ashley. Speak to somebody else that's been diagnosed and they're not going to say, oh, yes, you are, or oh, no, you're not. But they'll just talking to people and sharing with other people and getting identification with other people's way of thinking. Such a relief when I hear that somebody's done something that I thought I was a lunatic for doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lovely to be able to relate to other autistic people once you figure out that you're autistic yourself. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the final question is, what does being autistic mean to you?
That's a really hard question.
Yeah.
Because I do have some people in my life that get angry if I mention it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Shut up about being autistic. So in many ways, I wish I wasn't, but it's for the reasons that I've said before. I'm glad I am.
Yeah.
For music and for being autistic. For me, I don't know how to answer that. I don't know how to answer it. It's given me an explanation is the best way for me to say it, and I'm grateful for that explanation. I don't know if I'm grateful that I've had to deal with all this stuff, but I'm grateful that I've got the knowledge and that I was able to, get the help and get people being cool about it. And everybody's, so many people in my life are really cool about it. And they're like, oh, I'll ignore him, he's autistic. And I go, ha, 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 ha. And it's not my full identity. And sometimes I can let it be that. Sometimes I can go, oh, but it's something that I'm regulating in relation to how I deal with the rest of the world and other people. And I think if you, yeah, I don't see it, to answer the question probably, I don't see it as a negative. I
Yeah,
don't see it as a negative.
that's a good answer. But it's been great to talk to you today, Tom. Thanks so much for coming
Well,
on.
thanks, Heather.